Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of SNU Sports Chat. I'm Carlos Font.
And I'm Zach Friesen.
Another season has come and it's almost gone. Some people might call this football season, but for others, it's the best time of the year. I'm talking about MLB Baseball's pennant and World Series chase. To start things off, Zach, take us through a little bit of how this season has been and how good compared to other years.
This season's definitely been an interesting one. I mean, there hasn't been as many no-hitters, perfect games, anything like that. And we saw one from Clayton Kershaw, one from Josh Beckett, the Phillies combined for one. But there's been just great years from individual guys. They've had excellent seasons, so it hasn't been like individual showcase. It's been more of an individual season performance from a lot of different guys. And then there's plenty of different pennant races going on. The AL Central is going to go down to the wire with the Tigers and the Royals. There's a race in the NL West with the Giants and the Dodgers. There's wild card races that are still to be decided. There's going to be a lot of excitement here in this last month, plus award races that many people may overlook, but that's going to be plenty of interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare it to the season where Miggy won the Triple Crown and you guys have like Mike Trout who are competing for MVP, it wasn't one of the best seasons compared to 3 years ago, but for sure was one for the ages as well. Let's start with Rookie of the Years. It's not a season that has been packed with a whole lot of them, but we have guys like Jose Abreu, George Springer, Jacob deGrom, and Billy Hamilton.
For my American League Rookie of the Year, it's a fairly obvious choice. Jose Abreu's put up MVP caliber numbers, and I'll talk more on him later, obviously. But he's just blown the rest of the competition out of the water. And that's not to say that other guys haven't had a good year. Yordan Ventura for the Royals, he's established his name as one of the best up-and-coming pitchers in the league. Colin McHugh for the Astros, along with George Springer, they've provided a glimpse at the future for the Astros, even though they've both dealt with injuries throughout the year. Jake Odorizzi for Tampa Bay, he's also had a great year, so a lot of promising faces in the American League. And then the National League, I'm going to go with Jacob deGrom from the New York Mets. I know you'll like that pick since you're a Mets fan, but I just feel like he's been more consistent when he's been playing. He's got an ERA of 2.62, and he's been a solid force, and he's going to build upon that for next year so he can give the Mets a young core to work with, and he's had a great year. A lot of people say Billy Hamilton should win it. He's just been way too inconsistent for me. His second half, he's been way down. Yes, he gets a lot of steals. He plays great defense, but his average on-base percentage is too inconsistent, so I'm going to go with deGrom for that one.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. There's not a better rookie or power hitter, period, in the American League than Jose Abreu. He's had a great, almost an MVP season. Some people might even consider us for that award. And for the National League, I like deGrom a lot. As a Mets fan, I can be a little bit biased about that. But yeah, I also believe that Billy Hamilton hasn't had his best season. He had a whole lot of big expectations coming in. He was predicted to steal almost 80 bases and even break. People talk about him breaking the Ricky Henderson stolen base record, but at the end of the day, he did have a very disappointing season, so I agree with Jacob deGrom there. Now let's take it to the Cy Young Award. And for the most part, the Cy Young Award said, at least in the National League, Clayton Kershaw's having a great year, threw a no-hitter. There's no better option than Clayton Kershaw. That will give him a second straight Cy Young Award. So take me through the American League. Who are you thinking, and who do you have?
A lot of people have Felix Hernandez winning this award, and he's had a great year, not discrediting anything he's done. He's had a tremendous year. He's got an ERA 2.12, over 200 strikeouts. He's done a great job this year. But I'm going to surprise people, go with Chris Sale. People discredit that because he's missed some time with an injury. But when he's been playing, he's been absolutely dominant. He has the second lowest ERA in the majors, only to Clayton Kershaw. He's under 2. He's close to 200 strikeouts. While missing all that time with the injury, he's got more strikeouts per 9 innings than Felix Hernandez. He's 12-3, so almost any single game he comes into, he wins. So I'm going to go with Chris Sale.
Yeah, in a way, I like King Felix, 14-5, 2.12 ERA, leads the league in strikeouts with 217. But I agree with you. Sale, after injury, he didn't miss a beat, same almost in a way like Jose Abreu, his teammate on the White Sox, who was leading the league in home runs, got an injury, missed about 2-3 weeks, but came back and was the same player, kept hitting home runs. So I agree with you in this one as well. I think Chris Sale should win. The Cy Young is something that was predicted early in the year by the experts, and I think it's going to happen. I think Chris Sale gets his first Cy Young.
And it's it's kind of a shame because so many great pitchers are having great years. In the National League, you said Clayton Kershaw. He's basically a lock to win. He's considered an MVP candidate by some people.
Yeah.
But Johnny Cueto has had an unbelievable year, 18-8, 2.15 ERA, 220 strikeouts. Any other year, he'd be a Cy Young favorite if Clayton Kershaw wasn't having an otherworldly season. And the American League, Corey Kluber, he's had a great year for the Indians. Before he got hurt, Garrett Richards, he had an unbelievable year. John Lester, he's even had a good year. So there's a lot of great candidates who have had unbelievable seasons. It's just a couple of guys are having even better years than everyone else.
And even a guy that you missed mention was Adam Wainwright, 17-9, 2.62, probably the best pitcher that the Cardinals have, and probably the reason why they're there other than Jaddy. But yeah, it's been a good pitching year. Now let's talk about the MVP award. Like we said, Miguel Cabrera has won the American League MVP award for the last 2 years. Some people might have thought that Mike Trout was the winner of that award. Is this the year that Mike Trout wins the award?
I'm not quite sure about that because a lot of people consider him a lock because Miggy's having a down year. But these last few weeks and maybe a couple months, Trout actually hasn't been that great either. He's dropped his average down to 286, which is unbelievable to say 286 is struggling for somebody because that's a great year. He has 32 home runs. He has 103 RBIs, 101 runs scored. But also, like I said earlier, Jose Abreu should definitely get some consideration for this award. He has a higher average than Trout. He has more home runs than Trout. He has almost as many RBIs as Trout does, but no one is talking about him for the MVP award. And another candidate I really like is Victor Martinez for the Tigers. He gets overshadowed by Miguel Cabrera because he's the bigger name, and Martinez has been down a couple years. But this year, he's hitting .333 with 30 home runs and 96 RBIs. And he's just led that team while Miguel's been struggling. Verlander's been struggling. The pitching staff has injuries. Other players on the team have had injuries. He's been the constant player for that team, and it definitely deserves some dark horse MVP consideration. But all in all, I believe that everyone is going to be feeling like Trout deserves it after becoming in second the last 2 years. Some think he should have won it last year. I think that people will end up voting for him.
Another thing to mention about Trout, Albert Pujols is finally having a good year. That whole team is finally hitting. Even Josh Hamilton, when he's not, usually when he's not hurt, he's hitting the ball pretty well too. And I feel that Mike Trout has had more help than Jose Abreu has had. And even though the White Sox are not in playoff contention at all, he is the only slugger on that team, the only person that's hitting the ball and keeping the team alive and scoring runs for them.
I definitely agree. I mean, Abreu definitely is carrying that team with his bat. All in all, I think he might deserve it more than Trout does, but I still say Trout will win it.
Now to move into the National League, tell me why Clayton Kershaw won't be another player that will win the Cy Young MVP in the same year.
I just have a hard time seeing Kershaw, even though he's been so dominant. He missed time with injury. He missed a couple starts. I think it was around a month that he was out. But I just have a hard time seeing a pitcher win the MVP while missing that amount of time, especially considering the year that Giancarlo Stanton has had. Even though he got hurt last night, getting hit by the pitch in the face, and is likely to miss the rest of the season, he's had an unbelievable year carrying the Marlins. And you have to ask, without Stanton, where would the Marlins be? They would without a doubt be lower in the standings. He's hitting .287, leading the National League with home runs at 37, 105 RBIs, and he's gotten walked almost 100 times this year. Teams are scared to pitch to him, but he still gets monster numbers when they do pitch to him. So I just feel like he's had too good of a year to give to Kershaw.
Other guys that we can mention are the reigning National League MVP, Andrew McCutchen, and Buster Posey, Jonathan Lucroy, the catcher for the Brewers. I feel now that Giancarlo has gone down on injury, I don't see him winning the MVP anymore just because the Marlins probably, not in the keep up with the contention, even though they're only 5.5 games out of the second wild card. So I can see where they can go with Kershaw as the MVP, but I'm thinking if the Pirates end up making the playoffs, I see Andrew McCutchen winning his second MVP in a row.
That's definitely a great possibility, but you said with Giancarlo out now, the Marlins are going to fall out of contention. I feel like that's going to help his consideration for the MVP. They're going to see, the voters will see how valuable he is to that team, and then they'll realize he was the one who got them there. And if they do fall, like many people say they will, I think that'll help Giancarlo's chances at winning it. And all in all, I think he still will.
A little side note: if Mike Trout was to win the MVP this year, he'll become the 4th youngest in MLB history. The first one since Jose Canseco won it in 1988, and back then, Canseco hit 307 with 42 home runs and 124 RBIs. So moving to the division and how everything's going to play out. You know, the AL East is pretty much set. The Orioles are going to win that. Same thing with the American League West with the Angels. So the main focus here should be the AL Central. The battle between the Tigers and the Royals. How is this going to play out, Zach?
I think it's going to go down to the wire because I believe they have 2 more matchups throughout the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. I just think that the Tigers will pull ahead. They have the pitching staff. Mm-hmm. They have Verlander, Porcello, Scherzer, David Price, Anibal Sanchez may come off the DL at any point in time. And if they get all 5 of those guys in that starting rotation, that's going to be a scary rotation to face for any team. And like I said, they face each other. But other than that, the rest of the schedule the Tigers have, very winnable, a lot easier than the schedule the Royals have.
I don't think the bullpen for the Tigers finally responding. Joe Nathan has had a little bit of offseason, so I think he's bound to bounce back here, especially now down the wire in the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, Joey Chamberlain is having a great season. You know, the guy that was supposed to be the Yankees' future, the guy that was supposed to replace Mariano Rivera, is finally having a good season. So I see the Tigers win the AL Central, especially with Miggy and Victor Martinez and, you know, those guys that can hit the ball pretty well, and Ian Kinsler is also having a good season. So I like that pick of the Tigers. So that meaning that being said, Royals and Athletics for the wild card.
That's what I believe will happen. I think the Athletics they'll right the ship in time to clinch a wild card spot, and I think the Royals will continue to play well, and they will get a wild card spot as well. They've been playing really well recently. Unfortunately, one team has to sell for a wild card in the AL Central. I think it'll be the Royals who get it.
So that being said, who do you have for winning that wild card game between the Athletics and the Royals?
I think it'll be the Royals who win that game. They kind of embrace that underdog mentality. They have that blue-collar mindset, and I think that'll get them over the hump and suppress people and go into the playoffs, make a run.
Another thing I have with Oakland, something that bothers me in a way, is that they did make some moves bringing Lester and Samardzija in, but they let go of their slugger, which, you know, Cespedes. And I think they've lost a lot of run production with sending Cespedes to Boston. So I think the Royals have a good chance at beating Oakland. I can't for sure tell you until once we get there. It should be a good game, but it's going to be tough to figure out who's going to win that game. Now, moving to the National League, Nationals are pretty much set, but from there on, nothing else is for sure. The Cardinals have a 2.5 game lead over the Brewers. The Dodgers also have a 2.5 game lead over the Giants. So how is this going to play out, Zach? Are the Brewers going to bounce back, or are they going to end up settling for a wild card spot?
I think the Brewers are going to fall completely out of the playoffs. I mean, I think they're 3-7 in their last 10 games coming into today, and I just think that's been too much for them to overcome. I think they're falling apart at the worst possible time. I think the Cardinals will clinch the NL Central. They've been playing well recently, other than this past series against Cincinnati. But I think they're going to clinch the NL Central. I believe the Pirates are going to surprise people and clinch a wild card berth. And then I believe the NL West, I think the Dodgers are going to run away with it. They have the pitching staff. They have Kershaw, Greinke, Ryu. They have all those guys. I think they're going to, just on talent alone, they're going to pull away from the Giants. But I believe the Giants will lock up that first wild card spot. So I think both the Central and the West will send 2 teams in the playoffs.
So now that we have the league all set up and playoff pictures, let's jump into October to the World Series. Who do you have playing in the 2014 World Series?
My 2 World Series teams are going to be a matchup of teams with great starting rotations. One's the Detroit Tigers. People say that David Price has been struggling since being traded from Tampa Bay to Detroit. I think he's going to find his group. He's a postseason guy. Yeah. He's a gamer. He's going to show up in that big game like in the wild card against the Rangers recently. He showed up. He dominated. That's the kind of guy he is. He thrives for that big situation. I think their rotation is going to step up. Their hitters are going to step up, and they're going to lead the team to the World Series. The other team they're going to face, Washington Nationals. The rotation, they have Jordan Zimmerman, Gio Gonzalez, Doug Fister, Steven Strasburg. All those guys, they're just dominant pitchers who can shut out anyone on any given night, and I think they're going to lead them to the World Series. The biggest thing about both of these teams is that their pitching rotation haven't been out of this world. They've been average. Verlander hasn't had his best year. Scherzer, after winning the Cy Young last year, hasn't had a great year. You said Price is struggling a little bit since the trade. Strasburg hasn't been the guy he was 2 years ago after he was shut down right before the playoff, that
ended up with Nationals being eliminated on the first round. Gio Gonzalez has been all right. So I feel like if the past is going to tell us something, is that pitchers of high caliber are going to find their way in the playoffs. We saw it with the Cardinals when they won the last World Series. Wainwright wasn't the same guy during the season, but once he started playing in the playoffs, he found his way and he dominated the playoffs. So I see why you picked the Nationals and the Tigers for sure, and that would be a pretty good World Series, something that was predicted to happen last year, but like the Nationals didn't make it through.
But that'll wrap things up for us here at SNU Sports Chat. Thank you for watching. I'm Zach Friesen along with Carlos Font, and we'll catch you next time.